Well, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you very much for joining us today on, I think, week 8 of our weekly 9-week annuity series every Thursday at 1 o'clock. My name is Jim Codney. I'm National Sales Director here at Western Marketing. I'll introduce Sean and we'll introduce our special guest, even more special than Sean, here in just a little bit. But a few housekeeping rules. First of all, we're here for you as we have been every week during this series. If you have questions, please type them in the question box. We will try and get every question answered to the best of our ability by the end of this presentation. We are going to have a special guest. We're going to introduce you to Stuart, who you can see right now here in just a few minutes. You're going to hear from him. So Sean and I are really excited to introduce you to a second agent who has actually started in the annuity side and put some of this into practice. So with that, again, thank you for joining us. It's my esteemed great pleasure to introduce somebody who's not only a mentor and a colleague, but a close friend, Sean Ruggiero. Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Stuart, thanks for being on the call. Yeah, like I said, this is about week 8, and we get a dozen plus agents that will log in and watch this. I know we get some that record it. One of the things about being independent is we have independent schedules across all the different time zones. But I do want to say thank you to those that are taking the time. I believe, and I've seen firsthand doing this since 2003, that far too many agents learn everything they're going to use within the first 6 months, 3 months, 90 days. They get maybe slightly better at doing it. It becomes slightly easier, but they stop learning. And when you are sitting in front, a lot of these are Medicare agents, okay? When you're sitting in front of 65-year-old plus people, you're sitting in front of people, and I've made this joke, meaning that I think there are people that would actually commit homicide to have your clientele, but they would do anything, they would kill to have the clients that you have. So ask yourself, how happy am I with my income? How happy am I with servicing my clients? How do I feel about my job fulfillment? This is an opportunity for you to take the same license, the same clients, no extra leads, ask questions, use the system that Jim has set up at Western Marketing, and double your income, plain and simple. And I'm glad we have Stuart on, because you could hear me talk, you could hear Jim talk to a blue in the face. This is the real world results. And one of the things that we'll promise you is that we're always going to give you the honest truth, the good and the bad. It is never a linear line up. It is, but where are we trending at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year? And what effort, energy, and heart and soul did we give? What education did we focus on? And what did we do to make ourselves uncomfortable? Because that's the only way that we grow. And that's why we appreciate you all being on, and this will reap dividends. So I'm going to start with my screen here. Please confirm one more time, Jim, that you can see this.
We can.
Okay, great. All right. So we had another scenario, but I wanted to take this scenario a little bit higher level and explain something that is going to be extremely valuable for you as agents to understand. Jim, what's a common objection? And I'm obviously giving you the answer right here, but there's like this speech 101, this common thing, like they heard it on the news and they all say it, they regurgitate it. Somehow the Safe Max, the 4% withdrawal rate became just a known thing. Well, what's the common objection about annuities? They tie up your money, right, Jim? They tie up your money. And as a little side note, if you Google qualified annuities should not fear surrender charges, I published an article years ago that really skyrocketed throughout the life and financial channels, because the reality is annuities, especially ones with qualified money, they're arguably more liquid, or appropriately liquid, than any other investment. And in some instances, if we compare it just to a stock bond portfolio, and that is going to be your competition, When I'm a financial advisor, if I'm an IAR or if I'm an agent under a broker dealer, my job is to not sell annuities. My job is to obtain as much assets under management as possible. Does that make them bad people? Absolutely not. Does that mean that they're doing a bad thing or bad service? Absolutely not. But it doesn't mean they're doing what's in the best interest. Because when it comes to these three things, and you'll hear me talk about this if you take my courses that are free through Western Marketing at the Annuity Resource Center, annuities, fixed index annuities specifically, are the best financial tool if you want to protect your principal, have the highest upside growth of a risk-free product, okay? That's highest upside potential growth of a risk-free product and have the ability to create lifetime income. So why isn't everybody selling them? And we're growing double digits, 20+% in this industry year to year over the last 2 years. So we are selling them. But what's one of the common misconceptions and reasons why? Liquidity. So Stuart, I'm going to include you. Have you ever sold an annuity that doesn't have a surrender schedule, meaning it doesn't restrict how much money you can take out?
No.
No, they all do, right? What I'm telling you is that's okay. That's a good thing. Just because something has a surrender schedule, just because something has a penalty if you cash it out early, doesn't mean it's not liquid. So let me show you how to overcome that objection objectively. It's the math. Watch this, all right? Now we're going to use one of the scenarios that was submitted, okay? This is Shannon. Shannon is 65 years old. She has actually a large IRA compared to what we see on average, $800,000 in her IRA. I think the story behind it is her husband, she was working, she had created a 401k converted IRA, but her husband died early and she also inherited his IRA. Okay, so that's a benefit that only spouses have. So if your spouse dies, you can take their IRA as your own. So now she has this $800,000 IRA. She's concerned about living long. We said in the agent's notes that her parents are still alive and in their 90s and very healthy, and her grandparents lived in their hundreds. Okay, so that'd be a serious concern. Serious concern. She likes guaranteed lifetime income, but her ex-husband, okay, told her that annuities tie up the money and don't offer any liquidity for emergencies. Right? Isn't it funny how people who don't have the qualification? I mean, I always thought this about Sue Zorman. Like, who in the hell is listening to her? Does she have a financial certificate? Maybe she went and got one. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, if I am, I forgive you or forgive me. And if you watch her, I forgive you. Like I'm not saying she's a bad human being. I'm just going back to such an opinionated person. It's almost like if they speak the loudest, then they're right. There is a lot of bad information out there. Okay. And one of those pieces of bad information is the lack of liquidity in an annuity. Now, I want you to notice one thing, and I won't go on this tangent because I have an article out there that if you're interested, Jim can send it to you. But you know what has liquidity issues? Qualified money. Because what happens, Jim, every dime you take out of an IRA, not a Roth IRA, but a traditional IRA, which is what most people have because the Roth IRA didn't come out till 94. What happens to every dime of that money?
It's taxed.
It's taxed. It's taxed. So, hey, I got a great retirement plan for you, Stuart. Take out 26% of your IRA. Now you're going to jack up your marginal tax rate. You're going to jack up your provisional tax rate, and you probably won't, you better die pretty soon because you're not going to have enough money left over. So you see my point? People talk about liquidity in a very ignorant way, right? There's liquidity restraints all over the place, whether the product has it or not. But what I'm going to focus on is the actual liquidity restriction, which is called a surrender charge, okay, a surrender schedule, meaning that your average annuity will allow you to take 5 to 10% out every year, 5 to 10%. If you take out money beyond that, they penalize you. They take X%, usually 10% first year of the excess, then 9%, then 8%, and it tapers down as you go throughout the 10-year life cycle of the annuity or however long the annuity is. So I'm going to show you how to address that. What's the alternative? Well, the alternative is just leave all of your portfolio as assets under management. Now, maybe these are preferred stocks. Maybe they're municipal bonds that are guaranteed. Maybe they're corporate bonds. Maybe they're junk bonds, right? Something with a lower than a B rating. It doesn't matter. If we look at the traditional 60-40 stock bond mix, Okay, 60-40 stock bond mix just as a starting point, as a baseline. We're going to have a bunch of assets under management that will have some sort of volatility, and they'll be considered securities investments. So if you have $800,000, right, and we apply something called the Safe Max. People have heard of that. Maybe they haven't heard of it. It's referred to as the Safe Max. But in 1994, William Bengen out of Trinity University did a study where he did regression testing for every day of every year for 30 years in the market and applied what would happen if you took your money then, took out a certain percent, would you have money in 30 years? So keep in mind, this is a 30-year long study. So if you're 65, it lasts to 95. In many of the instances, and see, this is why you don't sell off of conspiracy theory. You don't tell people they're stupid for having their money in the market. At some point, they made a decision to say yes. So Stuart, if I said, hey, did you choose to put your money in the market? You say yes. I go, that was stupid. Now I want you to choose to put your money in an FIA. Well, Sean, you just told me I make stupid decisions. Why would I do that? Be careful with that. There's no need to have the hyperbole. There's no need to have the stock market is gambling. Bullshit. The stock market is a fantastic place to grow wealth, but the stock market has risk. Okay. And William Bengen pointed out that if you take out 4% a year, that's the safest maximum amount you can have using Monte Carlo regression testing and still have at least $1 by the time you've gone 30 years. But in many of the instances, the account grew, right? I think 4% is very safe. Heck, maybe 5% safe. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying this with some neutral knowledge on that a 60-40% stock bond portfolio isn't a bad thing, but you better restrict it because no retirement plan says take out 10, 12, 14% every year and you'll be fine. Heck no, we could show you lots of testing where that you're going to run out of money really quickly. Okay, so we apply the Safe Max theory. If you take 4% of $800,000, if my math checks out, that's $32,000 a year. So $32,000 a year, and you're essentially, there's no guarantee, but if we believe what history shows us and we believe the mathematical statistics, you're not going to run out of money. In fact, in many cases, you'll have more money than what you started with. Okay, now why isn't that good enough? I'm going to deviate real quickly because you don't know for sure. You don't know for sure. So every time you see war in Israel and the Middle East, what's going on, or a terrorist attack in New York, or a tsunami hits California, or a pandemic hits. I mean, these are real things, right? Real things, and we don't know what the future holds. If the market starts to tank, you think, oh my God, right? We're human beings. Our subconscious is there to protect us and foresee bad things that can happen to us. Unfortunately, it's very powerful. And so what happens is we sit down at night, once all those distractions are gone, once we turn off the TV, and we think, oh my God, I'm going to run out of money, right? So even though we know that we're probably going to be okay, we also don't know if this is going to be that next 10, 20, 30 years where the Safe Max didn't hold up. So you get my point, right? We don't live retirement yearly and look back and see what the market did. We live retirement monthly, weekly, even nightly, okay? So I'm going to take out $32,000 a year. I'm feeling pretty good about this Safe Max withdrawal rate, but what if? What if Shannon, right? It was Shannon. Yeah, what if Shannon, which is a made-up name, so it doesn't really matter. I looked back there. What if Shannon wants to spend $25K for an emergency, go on a vacation? She needs repairs to the house. She wants to give to a charity. She wants to help one of the grandkids go to college. She wants to start gambling. She wants to, I mean, you name it. What if she wants to do that? How is that going to affect her $32,000 a year? Well, obviously, it's going to drop it down. So is this liquid? I mean, she can. There's nothing restricting her. And we haven't even gone into the argument of what if the market's down? What if yields are up and her current bonds are now having to be sold at a discount? Right? Does that make sense? Like we haven't even dissected the intricacies of the problems that could happen if she wanted to take out a $25,000 withdrawal from the 800. But if we just do linear math, 800, take away 25K, you're not going to get $32,000 next year. You would have to start to put your risk higher to get that same 32,000. All right? Well, how about this? How about you propose what I call a two-bucket portfolio? And I talk about non-correlated assets. Non-correlated assets. 60% can stay in stocks. And I actually have a presentation I do, Jim, where where I actually show you can put it into more aggressive stocks, because the years that it goes down, you don't have to touch it because you got a safe bucket, right? So this is the two-bucket approach. But instead of 60-40 stocks bonds, it's 640 stock FIA. Stock FIA. Now, why did I do that? Here's why. Because I can take far less money. I can literally take 40, half of it, right? $400,000. And it's not 64, it's 50-50. I should have updated that. I was using that almost as a moniker, but I can take $400,000, put it in an FIA. I chose the F&G Safe Income Advantage, and look at that guaranteed income that comes out. Okay, that's guaranteed. Doesn't matter what the stock market does. $32,000 every year for the rest of my life. So which is better? If someone said, I'm going to give you a $32,000 paycheck if you keep $800,000 on deposit, or I'm going to give you a $32,000 paycheck if you keep $400,000 in deposit. Obviously, the 400. So let's compare these. Which scenario has more liquidity now? The $800,000 with a 4% with safe withdrawal, or the 405, which is, if you look at $32,000, that's a 7.93% withdrawal for a single female age 65. That's a 98% increase of her safe max. 98%. Can we round up to 100? It's freaking 100% increase. You get a double the amount, which is why half the amount of money will get you $32,000 a year. That leaves her almost a $400,000 surplus. So remember that vacation, the car repair, the college, the house repairs, whatever it is, she now has liquidity. She now has $395,000 that she could, if she wanted to, put more into more aggressive stock portfolios. Keep it as assets under management. Write it out, because she knows that $32,000, in addition to her perhaps pension, but we know her Social Security, is going to be more money and more liquidity. So plain and simple. So Jim, I'm going to pause there because I want us to go to Stuart next, because these are things that really matter. I think this is an extremely important lesson, because you could use these slides and combat the liquidity argument with anyone who mentions it. Because most of them, they're doing what we call parroting, right? Not a parody, a parrot, like the bird. They're parroting something they heard. You know, I hear that all the time. You know, my favorite one, and my wife cracks up. I'm big into football. I coach football. I played football. It is when the running back makes a good run, they say, "Way to go, Kurt Warner. Way to go, Emmitt Smith." Yeah, whoever it is. But if he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage, okay, and this might be the fact that the quarterback didn't check out of the defense, right? He didn't check out of the run play, and he ran the person right into it. If we have the running back do a bad job, what do they always say? Bad job, O-line. Come on, O-line. There is absolute ignorance there, but they just parrot it. And then I ask them, I say, can you name one of the O-linemen on the Seahawks? Can you name one of the O-linemen on the Dallas Cowboys, or let's say the Arizona Cardinals down there? And they can't, because all they're doing is parroting what they heard. There's a great deal of ignorance here. So you have to be able to educate people. Again, not attack them, not sell off conspiracy. You don't want to gamble with your retirement, or we know that this is going to start tanking. And then, no, just explain to them, say, listen, that's a common misconception. I actually could show you how using annuities in your portfolio, adding them to your portfolio, will create more liquidity. Let me show you how. Does that make sense, Jim?
Absolutely. Yeah, Sean,
Yeah.
before we go into Stuart, I think it's a good segue here to Vito's question, because you've kind of brought up Susie Orman and some of the other pundits who speak,
I didn't offend anyone, right? Do you
no, I
say
don't.
like I didn't mean it
Yeah,
that way? Yeah, okay.
yeah, no, I think we're very clear, folks.
Okay.
Everybody has good information. Sometimes not so good information, depending on your point of view of that subject. So Vito asks, why financial advisors or financial planners slam annuities as terrible products?
It's a very easy question to answer, Vito, and it's a great question. It's because the vast majority of them are paid based on assets under management. And the Securities and Exchange Commission doesn't regulate FIAs, and it is not considered an asset under management. So if you had a client, Vito, and I'm a securities advisor. I've had books of business. I ended up selling my books, but I still keep my securities license. So Vito, if you were my client and you had $1 million and I put it all in stocks and bonds and closed-end funds and treasury bonds and all this stuff, that requires management. It has fluidity, and I need to be managing you. And I think the SEC says at least once a year you have to do something with it, right? And I'm going to charge you 1%. And that's fair. That's fair. I'm here to help you talk about tax harvesting. I'm here to explain to you why we added these 3 stocks to add diversity, or why we choose this index fund, or why we choose these bonds, or why we're going to buy or sell, or whatever it might be. I'm providing great service, and 1%, that's totally fine. Now, in addition to 1%, there could be load fees, deferred load fees, expense ratios, 12B-1 fees. And that's in my book, by the way, like be smart in which funds you're choosing and who you're choosing to work with versus a broker dealer or an RIA. I think the RIA is going to have to do what's in your best interest, because by law they have a fiduciary standard, where an agent of a broker dealer just has a suitability standard. But going on a tangent, Vito, if you came to me and you said, Sean, I heard about these FIAs, right? I mean, they seem like they'd be a really good fit. Stuart came and spoke to me about it. And this good looking dude from Montana made me think that this is a product I want to buy. And I want to look at putting $300,000 or $400,000 over this FIA. You know what I just did? I just took a huge pay cut, because if you put $300,000 or $400,000 over to that FIA, my assets under management went from $1 million down to $600,000. So my annual fee just went down. Does that answer, Jim? Pretty straightforward. That's why they're gonna not do it. Now, there is a newer age of fee-only advisors who I think are more agnostic, and you're seeing more where they just say, "Oh yeah, let's do an FIA, let's do this and that." But your traditional ABC brokerage, I'm not going to name names, they're not going to do it, and that's why you run into it. And one quick little cheat sheet, lesson here: always explain to your client, if they're excited about this. Let's say you asked the golden question, you came back the next week, you presented the FIA, they're like, my goodness, this seems like it's a great product. Explain that to them. Say, one thing I want you to know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or maybe it's Mrs. and Mrs. Smith, when you're going to discuss this with your financial advisor or move the money, they're going to call you and tell you it's a bad idea and annuities don't have liquidity and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's capitalism. And they want you to keep your money there because they're paid off of it. And if you move the money, they're not paid off of it. So I can handle any of those objections. Any ones that I can't, we have a core group, a national group of very smart people. People have securities license and people have certifications that will answer it for me or for you. But just know up front, they're going to tell you it's a bad idea, right? And the analogy I always give them is if you went to a Chevy dealership, Vito, and you said, I want the car with the best gas mileage, are they going to tell you you need to go buy a Toyota Prius, right? No, they're going to show you the best car they have, right? If I have another car from a different manufacturer that beats that gas mileage, then I need to use my intelligence and my sovereignty to make that decision and say here, and know straight up that the Chevy person is going to try to throw darts at the Toyota product. Well, their warranty isn't as good, or I hear those things break down all the time, right? You hear that sort of stuff. So kind of a strange analogy, but hopefully it makes sense. And clients get that. Like, it hits them as an aha moment where they say, oh yeah, of course. Like, they don't sell those products, so why would they ever endorse them? Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. One other quick question before we move on and officially meet Stuart. The question is pretty simple. You have that scenario that you just showed us with Shannon or Michelle or Susie or whatever we want to call her.
Yeah.
She's got 800,000. How much of that 800,000 are you putting in an FIA? Are you taking it all? Are you taking half? What would you suggest an agent look at to do in that scenario?
You got to go scenario by scenario. And that one, we suggested half.
Yeah.
And she was very comfortable. She had a relationship with her advisor. She retained the advisor after her husband. See, I think one husband died and she inherited it, and then she married and it was a bad marriage, and her ex-husband, she retained one of the advisors. So we took half. And I think the higher their net worth, Jim, and it's always unique. It's always person by person, but the higher the net worth, the lower the percentage you usually take. Does that make sense? Like my
Yep.
mom, God love her, she worked for the Catholic Archdiocese of Seattle for 806 years, and she saved up like 38 grand in her 401k or 403b or whatever it was. Um, and she just needed to turn to a paycheck. So we put 100% of it in. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the lower it is, usually the higher percent because they need more security. The higher their worth, the lower percent, just kind of as a rule of thumb. But present every scenario and try to find out what problem you're trying to solve. Because, Jim, I've seen people who have a lot of money, relatively speaking, right? 1.8 million, 2.4 million, and they are so scared of the market. They're so scared of waking up and having it go down that they're telling me, I want to put all mine into this FIA. It's like, well, the carrier probably won't allow that. Maybe we can split it amongst two carriers. And I always want to leave them some liquidity, right? So maybe
Mhm.
I'm securities advisor, so I could give them suggestions on that. Or I'd say, you know what? The carriers are only going to be able to accept 75% of your money or of your net worth. And that's what, Jim, your team will help them resolve. But as a general rule of thumb, the larger the net worth, the lower the percentage, the lower the net worth, the higher the percentage.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And as we move now to transition into meeting Stuart, folks, he'll tell you when they come to me for scenarios very similar to what Sean just went through, I ask a series of questions and we talk about do they want the whole amount here? Do they have other investable assets so they're diversifying into some safety with an FIA, and it actually sometimes gives them freedom to have more risk tolerance with their other money. So you know, I think that totally makes sense, Sean. That it's a case by case basis based on your whole client. We look at clients holistically.
Yeah.
So what may be right for one? It's just like which annuity. I could have sent Sean 10 different annuity illustrations for 10 different products that I've worked on with Stuart in the last 2 months, because he's got different clients with different needs in different scenarios. And it's the beauty of our market. So now I think it's a great time to transition into introducing somebody who, honestly, folks, I'm very transparent. Stuart and I have been friends for a long time, but he just started working with us at Western Marketing right about a year or so ago. And, I'm not going to, I want you to talk about your sort of transition and where you and your agency were and where you are now and where you're planning to be, Stuart. So, welcome. And Sean, if you want to go ahead and talk to Stuart, now's the time.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and that's it. That's the perfect jumping off point, Stuart. So we're going to go into this scenario right here. But before we do, tell us about Stuart. Where are you from? What have you done? What does your business look like? How long have you been in business? What did you do before that? What type of products do you offer? Let us know a little bit about you.
Sure. So my wife and I own an agency that does Medicare supplemental and life insurance, and we've been doing that, I don't know what, 30 years, Jim. So we've been we've done that nationally. My background is really in the capital markets. So I've had not only partners and investors, but nationally, internationally, very high wealth individuals, and then also institutions. So the idea of looking at when to really look at annuities as an investment vehicle, in my mind, having had that background, has probably never been a better time. I'm sure, Sean and Jim, you've mentioned, but I mean, we're at 20-year highs just at interest rates for annuities. Let's just leave it at that. I mean, you can forget about all the other investments. You're at one of the best times that it's been in a long time. Now, I have a little bit more history looking at where things come from, and I might be just a little bit older than dirt, but you guys are younger than I am, so I've seen and made a lot more mistakes than you guys have. And certainly in investing, that's how you learn the most. So I can at least adhere to that. That's a lot of, I think, what I bring to the table in terms of talking with clients. I'm going to have a clear understanding of what mistakes maybe they have made or opportunities that they've missed.
Yeah.
In terms of looking at how this grows with Western, one of the things that is important to understand when you jump into anything new, you know nothing. And I hate to tell you this, you're going to be horrible until you do it enough.
Amen.
I'm including myself in that. I may have all this background and knowledge, but I don't have an idea about the products. I got to look at the experts. So you know how I do that? I do that with my team at Western. And they give me the background information to say, this is what we ought to look at. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the answer. It just means that's the next step. This is a process. It's not going to be a destination. There's not anything you mentioned linear before, Sean. None of these are going to be linear. They take all kinds of turns and bends, and eventually we get there. So my success story in terms of looking at this is, look, I expect to be one of the largest in the nation doing this. We've committed resources, not only just with other agents and marketing, but we believe this is the direction. If we looked at all the trillions of dollars that are stored up, we got an absolute political, financial nightmare that's right ahead of us, and it's a great story to tell. And
Yeah.
most of that comes down to one product, Sean, and you mentioned it, and it's annuities. That's the only guaranteed investment that's out there that's truly safe. So
Yeah.
that's my story.
Absolutely.
Let's get into the case, guys. You let
Excellent.
me talk, but you guys won't get a chance to talk.
No, that's perfect. And that we need to know that's what matters, because people are going to have similarities and differences to your story, but they can adhere to the basic concept. So this is essentially our final scenario in the series. And I love that it's coming from an agent, but this is scenario 5. We have a female. Was this in what state was this in?
California. It was in California.
California.
Okay. All right, so we have a 57-year-old female who has a $450,000 potential investment into, and I shouldn't call investment, potential premium payment into a fixed index annuity. So I'm going to start with this. Stuart, where is the money coming from?
So she is a highly paid professional that has done a pretty good job of creating a nest egg. However, she recently went through a divorce. So now she is having to deal with, what am I going to do? She's got a great paying job. That's not going anywhere. But she is looking at the fact that she's 57. There are obviously, when you collect all the data, some other things, do you have children, da-da-da-da-da. Of course, she has a child. He's in college, but the trust fund that they set up is paying for the education. So there are all kinds of little things that go off. There's a lot more to this. But I think a lot of this is her really having the curiosity of what could she do to create another additional income stream that's truly protected for the long term. And that was what we were trying to accomplish when we were looking at this, to say, what could we do? She doesn't need it right now because she doesn't plan on retiring, but what could she have with what she has right now? And that's what we were trying to accomplish for her.
Okay, so that's great, because you answered basically the first 2 questions, who the client is, and where the money's coming from. This is money that they actually had saved up. How did you discover the need? Like, tell us, did you just call up and start talking annuities, or
No.
know her previously?
A lot of that is an introduction. Sean, you do the same thing, but from my perspective, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't want to advise you on your portfolio. As a matter of fact, the only thing I'm interested in is protecting your nest egg. Whatever you've worked for, my goal is for you to be able to look at that and say, I'm not going to lose any of that money and I'm going to get a fair return. If we're on the same page, then we're going to be able to come up with a solution for that. But if you're looking, I got to have a 15 to 20% return every year, the rest, I'm the wrong guy. I'm not your guy. We don't need to have a conversation after that. So usually that conversation kind of flushes out really quick. Okay, no, I want something that's very secure, and I'm willing to go ahead and talk about something that's a fair return. And you'll get into those discussions, but it really, the beauty of any annuity isn't the return that you're going to get in the market. It's the fact that you got compound interest on money that continues to grow, tax deferred. And that's the big deal on any of the fixed index annuities that we talk about if we're trying to accumulate money. So, and what other product can they create income out of? At the end of the day, that's great to have accumulation, but what are they going to live on? You can look at an asset like real estate and watch it grow in value, but man, the day you need to cash it in, if the market crashes, you're in trouble. Nobody wants to buy. You don't have any liquidity. So that's part of what you have the conversation in. And I think this was an education process with her because she just took a big hit. She's watched what's happened, in a divorce or in things that can happen. And as you mentioned earlier, life is not linear. We don't get to decide what that looks like. There's going to be things that happen, a new roof, a new car, a divorce, whatever that is. We need to make sure that things are set up so that we can handle those emergencies. Last, you said, what's their motivation? Again, it is for her, it was going to be security. It's knowing that she has at least a plan. And that's what I tell everybody when I talk to them. Look, we're not going to create a solution for the rest of your life. What we are going to do is figure out what the next step is and give you a plan that we can go ahead and at least adhere to that gives you peace of mind. Because I can't promise you what's going to happen. The one thing that you and I probably would agree on is, if they've got a healthcare issue, that's going to be a very major issue. What are we going to do? How do we deal with that? And that's always something that I usually bring up. Jim knows the long-term care aspect on annuity riders is amazing. Probably the best product in my mind that's out there to take care of something that nobody wants to talk about or address.
Yeah. And let me circle back on one thing. Were you helping her with a Medicare product, or did you know the client previously?
No. Yeah, this was not, we didn't even talk about Medicare. Again, she's 57, so it wasn't on Medicare. Yeah. So this was true annuity all the way through. That's a tough conversation. You and I can talk later about that, but that transition's a little bit harder to make, from Medicare to annuity. It's a little easier for us to go annuity to Medicare than it is to go Medicare to annuity. Not saying that we haven't been able to make it, but that one's just a little harder to do.
Well, that's why it's a volume approach. Ask every single one if they're self-insured, what they have, and if they have something, ask them if it's protected, and walk down that path, right? That's what we do. So now let's look at the solution. So you submit this over, you and Jim discussed this. This is the Market 10 Bonus Index. I actually have sold one of these before. Equitrust, great company out of Des Moines. I think they have an A- or an A rating, so they're solid financially. And I've got two illustrations. They're the same, but one of them is the guaranteed and one of them is the non-guaranteed. Because I show that because in either situation, whether one of them is the financial calamity of the next 3 decades, or the other one is the greatest financial or the average financial 3 decades, the average being what we illustrate, you're focused on the income. So walk us through this illustration and what you solved here, Stuart.
So her big concern is, Social Security is not going to be enough for her to live off of. She knows that in terms of income. She's gotten paid well, but what is she going to do when she's done working? Where is the income coming from? And that's kind of what she wants to know. What could I have if I use this money to go ahead and create something that creates money when I decide to retire? Now, we waited obviously a little bit to go ahead and say, look, we'll wait 10 years and see what that looks like. Part of that is just when we talked about when do you think this is going to be? How are you going to get there? Obviously, if that happens before then, the numbers all change. But what we were able to do is at least say, this is the income that can be created from the asset that you have right now. She's going to continue to work. She's going to continue to have income that she can invest. This is just part of the peace of mind that she can have for her future. I think the big thing with her was that it's guaranteed. She's
Yeah.
had a couple of things happen to her recently, but she's extremely risk adverse. So that becomes her issue right now. And I get it. We, in looking at the non-guaranteed portion, that value is important, but it's not as important as the $75,000 that is
Right.
beginning. That's the number that she's focused on.
Yeah, and that is one of those black and white annuities like we covered last week. It really doesn't matter what you're illustrating. An income annuity isn't designed to illustrate well. They move money from the participation rates and caps, from the yield there into giving you the highest paycheck that you can, guaranteed. And similar to the scenario I pointed out, it's oftentimes people who are concerned about the market. They're concerned about living long. They're concerned about not having enough income, not enjoying their retirement. And Tom Hegna says it best, right? You sometimes see people who have spent 3, 4, 5 decades saving money up. They're really bad at spending it. And so if you can say, well, how are you going to spend your money? What do you need? And kind of walk them down that path and say, well, would an extra $75,000 on top of your Social Security or any pension that you have, how would that make you feel, knowing that that's guaranteed no matter what the market does, right, Stuart? That makes them light up because they're like, yes, that's what I need. And only an annuity does that. You can ladder as many bonds as you want. You see what I'm saying? You can show some financial tools, but you wouldn't be able to have that guaranteed basis right there. See that right there?
Even under that bond, yeah, even under that bond scenario, you got to remember, even if you ladder that stuff, you're going to be paying taxes on the income unless you decide to do muni bonds or tax exempt bonds of some kind. So, I mean, there's too many moving parts. And, even though this is really a new venture for us and we're learning, keeping it simple is really important. And
Yeah.
what is the issue here? And in my mind, the issue for her is safe income.
Yep. Yep. Excellent. Well, by the way, this funds, average commissions, you're north of $20,000, and I'm being conservative, right? And so that's a pretty cool thing too, because you help someone out, and we talk about doubling your income. You see how asking that question, right? This didn't take a different license, right, Stuart? You didn't go out and get some special license. This didn't take some special leads that cost you an arm and a leg. This just took the ability to ask questions, tell them I've got product that might help you out, present it, and move forward from there. And Western is going to be by your side every step of the way.
Well, let me just say this about Jim and Sean and really the team in general. You cannot know. There are hundreds of companies and thousands of products. I promise you, you have to have resources like Western to be able to run ideas by them and say, what about this? And I can't tell you how helpful that is. I mean, Jim will call me and say, just had a meeting with Allianz or whoever it is, and they're doing it. I said, Jim, don't even tell me. I don't want to be confused right now. Just shut up. But you need those people in your camp to be able to help you out when you do have a case that comes up. And a lot of what Sean said is right. Ask the questions. I mean, I can promise you that there is low-hanging fruit that everybody has. It's just a function of how do we want to work that. Somebody's going to work it. And, my wife and I, at least in our organization originally, it used to be just Med Sup. And then, we converted that to be able to put life insurance on every single policy that we sold on Med Sup. And while it's not 100%, it's pretty close, and Jim could tell you. But we're looking at doing the same thing really on the annuity side. How do we do that? Well, they're just some questions. Do I have that perfected or know how that is yet? No, but does it work? I think that we're one of the, cases that you could look at, Jim, for Western to say this is a proof of concept. It works. Just keep asking the question. Now, our goals are bigger because I believe personally, having been in the financial industry, this is the best product for the vast majority of anybody that wants to retire or have income. So I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah, Stuart, if you don't mind me jumping in, I just want to talk about something that Sean's brought up that I know you've been through, and I want to just be as honest as we can be. What do you and I talk about? It's about getting up to bat, right? And even if you strike out with one client or two clients or three clients, eventually you're going to get a hit. And so I think you can attest that that's very true, right? That you are not closing 80, 90, 100% of your annuity
Well,
illustrations,
you
because
say
I
that.
work them, so I know you aren't, but
Yeah,
you're doing
here's
well.
what I didn't turn this back to Sean because I don't believe there's a bad lead. It's just
Right.
how are you going to work it? And it's all about timing. Right now, anything could happen. And, one of the clients, I mean, you remember, one of the concerns I had is this guy got diagnosed with cancer. Well, that's going to change everybody's perception of what they want to do. I'm sorry, you're not going to
Absolutely.
be able to convince. Their focus is not their portfolio right now. And so when that happens, does that mean that client went away? No. It's just how are you going to work it? How do you stay in front of it? So for me, I mean, I'm not looking at that. I just realize that the runway is much longer because the plane's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just need to go ahead and understand, keep asking, keep asking, keep asking. This is really important though. I would say the vast majority, and Sean could probably attest to this, people don't care as much about their health care as they care about their money.
For sure.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can convince them that they can trust you, I promise you, that opens the door to almost any and everything that you have. So how does that happen? It doesn't happen in one conversation. Maybe it does with Sean. It doesn't with me. Maybe it does with
No.
you. But that's
Yeah.
a process of building that relationship to give them not only information that they want, but information that they need. And they don't know what they need. That's why they're asking questions. It's up to us as
Right.
professionals to figure that out. That's why it's important for Western and Jim and Sean to get involved as part of your team to go ahead and say, look, this is how I can build this business. And I think that's the important part to understand. You can't do this by yourself. Jim, you and I have had this conversation before. If somebody was going to go, hey, I'm going to go get my license and sell annuities, good luck with that. I don't know exactly how that works because you have to have a team like this to be able to figure out, what do I even do? Somebody says, I'm thinking about annuity. I have $450,000 and they're from California. You live in Texas. Now, what do you do? What do I have that conversation about? You got to talk to somebody. So.
Yeah. And with these cases, and I tell me if I'm wrong, Stuart. Typically, what we do is offer multiple solutions, right? Multiple options for your clients because we get the information from you through your client. We don't profess to know them as well as you do. So I often ask more questions than the information given, and then give more than one solution as a possible right solution. And sometimes we still have to pivot as we get further down the road, and that's okay. But it's folks, I truly believe we're blessed to be in an industry where what we do helps people, right? Whether you're selling Medicare and helping them with their health insurance, life insurance, helping their survivors when somebody dies, annuities, helping add the foundation for somebody's retirement income. I mean, it is a blessing to be in an industry where we're able to help people, and that's our goal here. I know, Stuart, that's your goal, right? I've always believed if you do the right thing, money takes care of itself. Folks, don't stress about the money. Let's do the right things by your clients. Let's get them in the right products, whether it's a SPIA, a MIGA, an FI, whatever. Let's find what's right for them. The rest of that stuff takes care of itself. And with Sean's help, Western Marketing's been able to pivot to where we can truly help. And we've got a lot more resources today than we did when I started at Western Marketing. And honestly, I'll take this much credit and I'll give the majority of credit to Sean and his team because they've really gotten involved. They really want to help us, help you as our agent force, because without you, Sean and I don't matter. We're unemployed or we're in a different job. I wouldn't be unemployed, but I wouldn't be able to do this, which I enjoy. So, it's important. I do have a question, Stuart, specifically for you. And you sort of brought this, you have sort of answered this already, and I'm going to add a piece, harkening back to last week because I know Ben's story very well. But basically, it was about, do you get a lot of your annuity business from your Medicare clients? One of the attendees specializes in Medicare, and so I know you kind of brought up that Trish didn't come from Medicare, and that it's easier for you right now to pivot to Medicare from annuities, except for instead of the other way around. But do you get much business at all right now from your Medicare clientele?
Well, let me answer that really the easy way. So because we have been at this just a few months, we can't really say we've
Mm-hmm.
been at it a long time. The last thing I want to do is do the wrong thing with an existing client. So
Sure.
a lot of what we're doing is perfecting all the things foundationally that we're trying to do. So to the extent that I've opened the book of business and really gone after that, the answer is no. Have we had clients that we have done business with on the MedSup side and did an annuity? The answer is yes. So
Yeah.
did we purposefully engage in a marketing activity to get that? No, that was more of just asking a couple of questions. So the answer is the business out there? Absolutely. I think the concern on my part is if you work really hard to get 30,000 clients, you don't want to do something stupid and lose 20,000 of them because now they think you're trying to scam them. And,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that this is a scam. I'm just saying it's all about perception. And I want to make sure if we're going to do this, we do it the right way. And I get it. I'm not going to be like everybody else. It might take me longer. I'm not as smart. I'll make more mistakes. But those are the things that I know how to do. And like I said, since I'm just a little bit younger than dirt, I can tell you that these things happen. And I want to make sure that I protect everything that we've already built. So adding this as an additional product is a slower process probably for me than maybe some of the agents that have 100 clients. They could just literally pick up the phone and probably be able to pick up business right away. That's not the
Yeah.
direction we decided to go initially, just because I think it's too big right now for me to be able to look at it that
Sure.
way.
And no, that's very fair. I will say Ben's perspective is slightly different, and neither is right or wrong. They're both right for you and yours. Ben uses those two questions that we talked about last week when he was on, and he's added those to his fact finder, to his what was a health fact finder primarily for Medicare, and it does have kind of the Ben's version of the golden question and stuff like that. And so while he's not attacking his current book of Medicare clients and risking in-force clients like you're saying, Stuart, he is using that to get, as he engages with new clientele.
Let me just qualify that, because I think it gets bigger. It's like my real goal, to be honest with you, is to be able to hit that long-term care thing that we're going to look at. Now we'll say that's, in my mind, the door to the annuity business, because that is something, regardless, you're going to open up the door and have that conversation when you tell somebody, do you want to spend, I'll use Sean's words, are you self-funding your long-term care? Because 70% of us are going to need it. Is that what you're doing? You've already thought about that? You can spend $120,000 a year just on that part. Nobody can. And everybody wants to be able to plan for that. So I think it becomes a conversation then. That's when we're moving in and finding out, well, what do you have right now? Well, I've got XYZ. And I mentioned the guy with cancer. I mean, he happened to be in open enrollment, but he was on an Advantage plan. I would have loved to have been able to switch him and say, this is the smartest thing for you, but you're not going to do that in the middle of cancer treatments, right? So those are the things, you balance all that stuff out and go, oh my goodness, how are we going to deal with this? But I think it also opens up, I mean, let me just say this, because you guys do all of this. Heck, you can have a conversation like we're going to have with any of the clients that we don't get anything with. We'll send them out a dental thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Do what you can do. And trust me, they're going to talk to you because you gave them information, even if they turned you down. I don't believe that that's bad. If you're in this business, go ahead and go out there and buy leads. If you're looking at Medicare leads, you're going to find very few of them answer the phone. When you start talking annuities and their money, they answer the phone. They want to talk to you. So I think that's the other thing that you have that works as a benefit in my mind is you can get a conversation going, which where do you take it at that point in time? I think that's the next direction. And I don't have all the answers. Like I said, I'm picking your guys' brains too. Before our seminar today, I was picking Sean's brain, trying to ask him some questions. So need to do more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great, and I appreciate that. Hey, folks, just real quick, we are very close to time, so if you have questions, please go ahead and type those in the question box. We want to make sure that we're here for you and that we answer any more questions you have. I want to just say this. I think it really gets down to, basically remembering that if you are not an annuity expert today, if that's not your primary line of business today, it's okay, folks. You aren't going to be perfect your first 1 or 2 or 3 appointments or applications. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And we don't want you to swing for the fence. We don't want you to oversell the returns of annuities. We talked in depth about that the last couple of weeks, right? Be conservative in what you're talking about. And you can show them guaranteed basis, hypothetical, non-guaranteed. But if you show those hypotheticals, always pivot back to the guarantees and say, those are well and good and those may happen, but this is what we can tell you will happen. Just like the income payout we showed you today for Trish, for Stuart's client. That's really what we want you to focus on is not overselling. Be responsible. Annuities are a great place for business. You can do a lot of great things and help a lot of clients as long as you do it the right way. And Sean and our team here at Western Marketing, we want to help you with that. Whatever it is you need, I can do anything except have the conversation with your client for you. I can recommend product. I can, do illustrations. I can, even advanced market stuff. We've got people for that. So if you'll work with us, we will do everything in our power to get you educated and the information and the confidence to have a good annuity, presentation, and then over time, as you get that integrated in your business, an annuity career, or at least part of your business. So, Stuart, I don't know if you want to say anything else, and Sean, and then I'll close.
I'm good. I will say this, though. One thing that you do bring to the table is you're going to bring relationships with the companies that are going to be important for them to get to know. And you have all those connections. So keep that in mind too. Like I said, we get caught in this thing that we think we know, but there's like this whole new world that's there. And there's no way for anybody to keep all that up. I mean, Sean probably has them all down, but he's been doing it longer than anybody else. So it is important to kind of pull on everybody as a resource.
Yeah, nothing for me. Thank you for having me, Stuart. Great job. Love hearing. These are my favorite conversations when we get to hear about the agents in the field who are doing the lifting and what the results are, where they've screwed up, where they've had success. So, Jim, unless there's any other questions, I'm good to go.
No, there's not. I just want to again thank those of you who were on the webinar today. Without you, this doesn't matter. We could have had a phone call. Stuart and I have been friends for many years. I could have called him on his cell phone. So thank you for a meaningful discussion. One thing though, this is being recorded, has been recorded, whatever we want to say. We will get this out. The link that you'll get includes every webinar in the series, so all 8 so far. I do also want to say we still have a couple spots open. I know one or two of you on the call have been trying to get your annuity badge so you can get Sean's book. We still have a couple spots left for that. So 88 minutes, 11 videos, I believe, and send me or anybody on our team your certificate with your annuity badge with your name and address. And Sean will literally, at no cost to you, mail you a copy of his book, The 7 Benefits of FIA. So great opportunity for you to continue your education on annuities and expand your knowledge and do it at your own pace. With that, I just want to leave you with, if you need anything here at Western Marketing, we're here for you. You're welcome to call anytime and ask for me. My name is Jim Codney. I'm our national sales director, and I manage the life and annuity team, or anybody on our life and annuity team can help you. We've got Amanda, we've got Tyler, and we've got Deb. They are the best, and they have servants' hearts, which is important. So if you need us, call us. Our number is 800-852-7152. Again, 800-852-7152. And with that, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you guys.